That's okay. Fuck do you think I am, man? I want to talk about Scott O'Neal. Okay, let's just start with that. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app, sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook, use promo code RTRS. Brought to you by Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process, and Stateside Urban Craft Vodka at any wine and spirit store here in PA or statesidevodka.com, the proud sponsor of the Corner 3 newsletter. On today's show, as we continue to, the podcast gets more and more ridiculous, we'll be having person, and she will better explain to us what sports arenas can and can't do for neighborhoods, and whether taxpayers should be kind enough to take their money and just give them to Josh Harris and David Blitzer to buy a new arena and a condo, built 2 condo buildings and a school, whatever.
Let's see what she says.
Yeah, let's see what she says. Jay Wright tells the world that he doesn't want to coach the Sixers. Jimmy Butler is no longer on the Sixers, but one of the Sixers still wants him here, and a lot more. Bark in the Park team, sign up, raise $50, get the T-shirt. Go to rightstreakysanchez.com to sign up, support Providence Animal Center. And a big, we want to send love to Tim and his family. One of the original process pups, Bruiser, passed away last week. Bruiser was 15, a good dog, went to the 2019 Bark in the Park. And as I told Tim, the one thing that dogs teach us is not to take anything for granted. They fucking love everything. So Bruiser had a fucking awesome life because he had Tim who loved him. So we wish Tim well, and rest in peace, Bruiser. Without any further ado, Amos and the Chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who asked me if he could talk about Scott O'Neal before the podcast started. That is Mike Levin.
I don't know how he still has a job. I don't.
What?
I know I've sort of positioned myself as a fire everyone guy, but I don't take pleasure in it. But just think about what he's overseen for so long with this team. And how he has somehow snaked his way out of any blame whatsoever because he got
the Colangelo thing was on his watch. I mean, in a real business,
all of the Colangelo things. Yeah. He notoriously butted heads with Sam Hinkie over MCW, who has turned into a ninth man. Mm-hmm. Great way to put your basketball stake in the ground there, Scott. Hinkie goes on to be lionized in ways that, Scott doesn't understand, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. They get bullied into Jerry Colangelo. Jerry hires his son. The son doesn't do anything well over the 2 years he's here, leaves in despair. Scott throws him under the bus.
All the while, Scott fighting with fans on Twitter and DMing them insults and threats.
Ooh, he's never DM'd me any insults or threats.
I'll send you some.
I'm hurt by that.
I'll send you some. Not me. But anyway, continue.
No, it's just what a truly impressive display of survival. I'm impressed from on a primal level that this guy can evade any blame or responsibility for all that he has wrought here because he got a business to sponsor, put a patch on the Sixers jerseys. And it's oh, what a treat. You're so good at your job. It's amazing. I don't understand how he's been involved in every step of the way for everything. And like the big organizational success story, I guess, was like, hey, we got a LeBron meeting. And it was like, you didn't meet with LeBron. You met with Ben's agent.
Yeah, didn't meet with Rich Paul. Really Rich Paul wasn't even at the meeting.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he's just like walking like he's this big shot. He comes from the Knicks, who is like somehow the only bigger tire fire than the Sixers now. What's the consistent thing there? It might be Scott.
And by the way, everyone at MSG will talk poorly about Scott. Like they can't wait to say.
I just don't understand. I don't understand how he must just be so good at coercing billionaires to do what he wants.
Yeah. He's good at that part of his job. I mean, he is, to your point.
But it's at a certain point you have to look around and be like, what's the constant here? It's him. Like if you got rid of, first of all, the fact that, and we'll talk about the coaching stuff, but like the fact that it's been a couple weeks now and there is still no movement in the front office.
No, but Mike, they're doing a deep dive.
They're hiring a firm that specializes in these kinds of things.
Like, how could you, wait a minute. They decided, think about this. They decided the day after the season that Brett Brown shouldn't be coaching anymore and fired.
Oh, they decided that
right
long ago.
So because, and fair enough, if you think he should lose his job, you should know by now, right?
Sure.
If they're doing a front office deep dive, are there people there they don't know? They've never met. They don't know what they're doing. Like, How do they not have enough information on this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I just don't understand how this guy, he's like, he wants to, it's simultaneously, I must be responsible for everything. I have all the right answers. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to like pull the strings and manipulate everything to my liking. But then when things pan out the way they do, which has been really bad, he somehow evades responsibility. Mm-hmm. Like he wants to be the guy on the parade float, waving to the fans, shaking hands, kissing babies, and also like Dick Cheney, who's like, I'm in the shadows. You don't know what's going on. I genuinely, the way I feel about Josh Harris is starting to dissipate because the way I feel about Scott O'Neil is reaching a boiling point.
I'm so in favor of this. I mean, like, it's wonderful. I mean, everything about this is wonderful. You're right. It's just amazing that here's where we are today. I love that this was your lead today.
I've been talking about it. So I've been waiting. It feels like we haven't done a podcast in a while. So it's been boiling up the past few days. Just like, I don't understand. You start to look around and you're like, okay, we want to get rid of people in the organization. They're probably going to like dispose of Ned Rucker, like in the friggin' Delaware River, because he's had an empty office.
Ned Rucker, you just turned him into one person.
Ned Cohen. Sorry. It feels like Alex Rucker has his claws dug in there a little bit more, that he could survive this as well.
I don't think so. I mean,
I don't think anyone should.
Yeah.
It seems like Ned got here and it was like, Zach Lowe gave him the endorsement. The league loves him. He's going to be the next commissioner, blah, blah, blah. He's a commissioner plant, probably.
Yeah.
But like he hasn't, who's heard anything from him and since he got here, really. He seems like he's been totally marginalized. So I really don't know. At this point, I think that one, maybe two people will get like an honorary firing and be like that they were the problem. And if Scott O'Neil's still there,
he can't.
I truly don't know why we would think anything would change. Like we might get lucky and get a draft the right guy or make a trade with a dumber team that really wants something or whatever. And so we happened upon lucky, like there's still, even with all the shit that's gone wrong for years and years, there's still like, because we still have Joel and Ben, the rope that we have now is still way longer than it was, for the 15 years before that, when it was just like, we have Iverson, who's excellent, but like sort of not like a build around you type of player, just the style of play that he played. And then with like, Iguodala and Drew and stuff, there's not good enough. So like we have the guys that could still get there, and they might get lucky enough, even with like horrible organizational, construction, they might still luck into like, oh, it won conference finals, and hey, maybe even they get to the championship. Like it was actually pretty successful. But they're still going to, if Scott is there and this thing is still there, I just struggle to see how we can have any faith in this front office to do anything right with any sort of long view. Not even the longest view in the room. What about just like a top 10 long view in the like sort of county?
I would like to see across the street at this point.
Anybody,
honestly.
give me something. Somebody put on glasses.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. Think about this. The only move so far has been to empower Elton Brand, who admitted at the post-season press conference that he didn't know what he was doing.
Didn't know what he was doing.
But now he does. We've let them somehow, here's the gift. Somehow we've let them slide on the Elton Brand thing, which is it's like and
it's not Elton's fault. He if you made me the GM right now,
right.
I'm sure some people that follow me would be like, that's pretty cool. Mike's the GM.
Yeah.
But you should be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah. He's never been in there before. What would he know about that?
Look, man,
let me follow. Let me cover the second round.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's possible. Like, I think it's possible that they could move on from Scott. Now, I'll tell you what, we're not going to wake up one day and Scott's going to be like fired or something. Like, that will be a soft landing guy. He will be leaving for another job. So if they decide that won't be somewhere.
He's going to Sixers Altoona.
Right.
He's covering campus there.
Correct. The other guys, I don't know. All of a sudden, the Sixers have become like the late, what is it, 2000s Phillies, where nobody actually gets fired. They just get put in a different room somewhere with a different job. Yeah.
Because I've been this guy for so long, right? Since Hinkie left, since Jerry got hired, and we talked about this on the I wrote about this for AU's list that he came up with that we all chipped in on which is you can read on the Rights Ricky Sanchez website, where it's the top 50 things of like where it went wrong. Mm-hmm. And Jerry is up there. And so we all wrote a couple blurbs for it. And I really remember talking myself into Jerry. Mm-hmm. Did it on this podcast.
Yeah.
Of being like, well, if it works, this guy who can provide some level of, air cover so Hinkie can do his thing and Jerry can just like grease the palms and make the agents feel good and calm the league down and all that stuff. But it was always going south, and it's been going south and south and south and south and south since then. And I look at this team and the non-zero collection of assets that they have to work with and to get out from under things. And I still think it is possible to do it in spite of all the bad decisions that have been made over and over again. I still think it's possible, but I think you look at guys like Scott O'Neil and the fact that they're already looking at coaching searches while they're still examining mm-hmm. the front office, just like really looking in, all eyes being occupied by examining the office, just pouring over documents. The fax machine is just ringing off the hook with the documents that they're pouring over for the front office to determine who the fuck is working over there. It's hard to have any level of confidence that these are the guys we should believe in to do the right thing.
No, we should have no confidence. Hard to have confidence. No confidence. Zero confidence.
Because I even do think like people can get better. Like I believe in Elton. The idea of Elton was like, hey, look, when I started here, I shouldn't have gotten this job, right? We all know I shouldn't have got a job, but I've been on it for 2 years. I made some mistakes. I made a couple good things happen. Now I'm equipped to do the job. And if Elton has like autonomy and the right guys around him, I do believe that guys can get better at their job and understand the situation more and adjust and make changes in a way that's positive. But because of the people that are around him, this like poisoned well, this like hive of, people stabbing each other in the back. And I just know that Scott O'Neil called Jay Wright himself. I just know that he called Jay Wright himself.
By the way, the only reason that the Jay Wright rumor was out there was because that had to be because Scott's a Villanova guy.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So it had to be a Scott saying, "Hey, I can let me talk to Jay."
Yeah, he's
Let
my
me talk.
guy.
Yeah,
Like
he's my
he's
guy.
just, oh my God. I'm not ready to like, as much as I do want everyone fired, if a given is Elton's going to stay, I do believe in some improvement for Elton and him learning from his mistakes and going, okay, that was wrong. The collaboration thing was bullshit. I had to like let it handle. It took me a little bit to understand my bearings here. But if everybody else is still there, like, then what the fuck
What are
are
we
we
doing?
supposed to think?
Yeah, they're just moving them around. It's literally the deck chairs on the Titanic thing.
Oh my God.
That's what it is. I'll tell you something funny.
We're
Thea,
doing a podcast on the Titanic.
our official process psychologist, told me she wanted to do a podcast. So she asked me for advice, and I was giving her advice today, and she was like, "Well, what about like preparing?" And I was like, "Well, this literally happened today." I said, "I'll prepare this like long thing that Mike will not look at," and I was like, and then sometimes in the first 2 minutes of the podcast, none of what I wrote down will ever come to pass. And it happened on the same day. It happened on the same
Look, you get inspired. You gotta
look,
be flexible.
bro.
And
I appreciate your art. I appreciate your art. The Rights Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by our great friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. Football around the corner, buddy. The Birds play in just over a week. To celebrate the return of football, DraftKings is giving everyone a bet like that you can't lose. All right, Mike, I assume that you've never heard of an NFL team losing by 100 points.
I haven't.
Right. So week 1, DraftKings is ensuring you that if you bet on Kansas City, they're going to give you 100 plus 101 for your bet.
Pretty good odds.
Yeah. So that's right. They are moving the spread for the Kansas City game. They're plus 101 for all users. You don't even have to be a new user. So if Kansas City loses by 100 points, you still win. Also, there's the big free survivor pool where they're giving away up to $100 million to all users who enter. Again, you don't have to be a new user, and $1 million to one specific person is going to win. Wow. All you have to do is sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook. Oh, and by the way, the basketball playoffs, believe it or not, still going on. OKC Houston is tonight, right? Is it going on right now? Or
a couple hours.
You still have time. Well, no, you won't have time, but you'll be able to bet on the next series, be able to bet on Boston, Toronto, all that kind of stuff. The only place to use is DraftKings Sportsbook. It's right here in the States. So you deposit when you want, withdraw when you want, and they support the Ricky. So you got to love them. They're the only ones you can use. Download the top rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code RTRS to take advantage of the no-brainer offer KC plus 101. That is promo code RTRS to get in all the action for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older.
I've tried to do DraftKings Sportsbook so much, and they don't have it in California, and so I'm just depositing money on the hopes that eventually it comes to pass.
California.
I'm ready to go. I'm just ready to go.
Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. Other terms and conditions and restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. As we were saying, Jay Wright, so horrified at the thought that he might be the next Sixers coach, he released a statement on Twitter saying, out of respect for the Villanova community and our 76ers organization, I feel the need to address speculation about the 76ers head coach position. I, Jay Wright, am the coach of a mid-major basketball team that, because of college basketball now, we actually have an advantage over the better programs. I'm sorry. That wasn't the statement. The 76ers have a great leader in Elton Brand, outstanding young talent, and an incredible opportunity for any coach to compete for a championship. As a lifetime 76ers fan, I have confidence they will bring in the right coach to build on what Brett Brown has developed. However, I am not a candidate for the job. I'm very happy and honored to coach at Villanova.
If he was a lifelong Sixers fan, he would not have hope.
No.
He does not believe with full confidence or whatever he said.
He'd be totally miserable.
He'd be like, as a lifelong Sixers fan, oh, Jesus, I couldn't do it. God, really not for me. Honestly, guys, we know how bad it is. As a lifelong Sixers fan, please spare me the trouble, for God's sakes.
As a lifelong Sixers fan, I'd like to take a look at the contracts of one Tobias Harris and Al Horford. Can you imagine that Twitter statement from Jay Wright, just obliterating their cap?
The Twitter statement is just like, give me a guard.
Just one.
One guard.
Yeah, you were
Just,
making fun of MCW earlier. I'd take fucking MCW.
yeah, why not? Anybody,
To be
anybody
honest.
at all.
We also had, oh man, we have our guest coming up in a bit. I feel like we don't even have enough time to talk about playoff Jimmy.
We'll
And
get to it.
yeah,
We'll get to it. That's
um,
exciting.
yeah. Joel Embiid tweeting about Jimmy after Jimmy's big win in the second round.
I can continue to convince myself that this team can. There are moves to be made that would give this team more of a chance to contend, legitimately contend, until we get to a Joel or Ben is asking for a trade, and then
I don't think we're that far, buddy.
I don't think we're that far. I don't think we're there yet, but I don't think we're far from it. And so I'm I mean, I'm scared of that. I'm scared of if we do that. Whenever we do the Joel or Ben is asking for a trade podcast, that'll be a dark day. That'll be a really dark day. I don't know. I might have to. I might not be able to be in the dark. I might be in the dark and on the ground, or like under the covers or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to convince you to do that pod.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we haven't had a trade request since Furcon's last day.
And they didn't honor it.
That happened. No, you can't.
And it worked out. And he had the best moment of his life in Portland.
You can't let Furkan Korkmaz boss you around like that.
You can't. The fact that they're like, it seems like Ty Lue is top of the list, but it's crazy that they are that is being. I mean, whether it's them leaking it or them just like having conversations and then those people are leaking it, it seems just like why? We don't have to. We just don't have to. What is the front office spending its time on? There's a limited amount of time. There's just every time is limited. They should be planning for so many things of like, okay, what happens if nobody wants to trade Horford? What happens if they ask for a trade? If Embiid demands to play with JJ, is there a way to do that? Like there should be just like many whiteboards of contingency plans, and instead it's just everyone in their office sending text to reporters being like, it's actually their fault.
Well, that's what they've always been. That's just what happens when you leave Brian Colangelo's front office in place. Yeah, I actually think you remember like Ty Lue was supposed to get the Lakers job, then turned it down or whatever because they were going to force Jason Kidd to be the assistant coach. I forget what happened.
Yeah.
But then there was some ugliness between Ty Lue and Rich Paul, where Ty Lue, like in public, sort of like dissed Rich Paul. And I think there was some like grossness within Clutch with Ty Lue. And I think most of these rumors are coming from, if you look at the reporters that are leaking them, they've been sort of like Clutch adjacent reporters who have been leaking the Ty Lue stuff. I wonder if this is them. Like, I actually think this is probably them trying to turn him into a candidate again after what happened with the Lakers. So I just wish he wasn't a Clutch client. The whole thing feels icky to me.
Well, so wait, he's a Clutch client still, even though I don't remember that ugliness with him and Rich Paul.
Yeah, AU mentioned it to me, so I went and I Googled it, and it's definitely out there. So yeah, he's still a Clutch client as far as I know. So before we get to our special guest Helen Gym, the Corner 3 newsletter comes out Thursday. Two things in the Corner 3 tomorrow. First of all, you'll be able to buy the black mask. Ricky mask from Buddha Babe in black. Looks pretty dope. It looks like what's the word I'm looking for? Like faded, like worn in a good way. They're really cool. But also
I like a worn.
Yeah, worn. We're also giving away the Zoe shirt, 5 per week, only if you're a newsletter subscriber. So as Zoe's most famous tweet, his pinned tweet about public school kids making fun of you, where you going in that nut-ass tie, old head. It's a great shirt. You're never going to be able to explain it to anybody. No. Go to writesrickysanchez.com/newsletter to sign up for the Corner 3 newsletter, brought to you by Stateside Vodka. There it is. They sent me a Stateside glass. Philly's #1 craft spirit, handcrafted, distilled 7 times, and certified gluten-free. We only take alcohol sponsors that are gluten-free. Stateside now available in the Magnum 1.75 liter bottles. Mike, look at this. That's the Magnum.
Whew.
It's enormous, right?
Pretty thick.
Stock up for Labor Day weekend at your local fine wine and spirit store, or visit statesidevodka.com to place an order for home delivery in the Philly 5 county area. Stateside Vodka, thanks for sponsoring the Corner 3. Please drink responsibly. So welcome, the first, not our second politician, but first local city council member, Helen Gym, since 2016, been on Philadelphia City Council. Currently going through probably the craziest year that anyone in politics has ever gone through. And our city, which needs a lot of help in a lot of different ways. And we appreciate you spending time on our basketball podcast to talk about the arenas and the new facility and that kind of stuff. So thanks.
No, I really appreciate being on with you all.
I guess my first question, from a more general question, if you don't mind me asking, I cannot for the life of me figure out why anyone would want to do what you do. Like in politics in general, it just seems so hard and thankless. And like I guess my question is like, what made you want to do it? And then what do you feel that makes you keep wanting to do it?
Yeah. Well, thanks. So I would say, people like me come into office because community movements are really strong. So I come out of like 20 years of doing community organizing. I was a rabble-rousing, mom, taking on public schools and cutting my teeth fighting mayors and developers around the, stadiums and casinos in Philadelphia, Chinatown, looking at like racial bias and harassment in communities and neighborhoods. And, I wouldn't normally have looked at politics because I think for a lot of folks and communities that I represent in particular, like politics is very marginalizing. But it turns out that a lot of the work that we try to do, because we have to organize anyway, when immigrants get deported and when, your schools start to shut down and when, there's violence that happens in a community or neighborhood, people have to stand up. So, I really got into it a lot because of the situation around the public schools. We have been working for 20 years on it. It started out in like backyard barbecues and schoolyards, and then it became an unstoppable political movement. We took down a one-term Republican governor that had cut $1 billion out of our public schools. And then, city council was next. And it felt less like I want to do this than this was the time to get something done. Like it was more than just, it was more than just me or in a moment. Like, I generally try to say like, there isn't an office that holds the kind of change that I want to seek in the world, because it is really transformative. Right. I mean, like I said, communities want transformative change, but we don't have to give up on politics. And like, especially now, local politics is incredibly powerful. We get to talk about what we're talking about right now because it matters to us. And it probably matters right now more than what's happening in Congress. It's not to say that one's more or less than the other, but this is urgent to a lot of people, and it'll reach a lot of people too.
Well, the thing that is always amazing to me is that like people that are like you, like the passionate, I want change, blah, blah, blah. The minute that they get inside, and I remember talking when we had Andrew Yang on, the minute that you see what it's like when you get into politics and how hard it is to maneuver through that system and actually enact the things that you want to do, usually like is disheartening. I'm just amazed at the fact that you would be able to see that sort of challenge and take those incremental victories, and still be encouraged enough to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, like movement organizing is tough too. Like we work on, we don't work on short timeframes. We work on like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. That's how I became, was nurtured by, supported by people who really thought for the long term. And so I think the difference with politics is like, every once in a while you get involved with a fast campaign, like the stadium out of Chinatown campaign, the casino campaign, trying to get, stop school budget cuts kind of campaign. And I see politics right now as like being mini campaigns every single year, and so like I'm attuned to like how those kind of think. And I try to think along those lines. And yeah, I'm patient. I'm looking for openings. And I think, when we win things like, the shutting down of the ending of a 17-year state takeover. It doesn't mean that we won like an end of a state takeover. It means we became an educational movement. And then what comes next is like, the world is possible. So my job is to like try to build movements that make everything open up. And then I try to see politics like that. And it's like, not only like, it doesn't just make politics palatable, it makes it exciting. It makes it like relevant, and it makes people like stop for a second in their everyday lives and, kind of take a look at the cynicism and like the feeling that nothing will ever change in this world, and just say like, hey, if we actually bond together, things actually do change. Like we can see it in our lifetime in a way that's like hopeful and inspirational. And it's not incremental. It's like, it's actually transformative, but it takes time.
We know where this conversation is headed, and I'm excited to get there, but I want to get a little bit more of a sense of you before we do. There was a Philly Mag article by Christine Spear-Lejeune about you in March, and said you're known for agitating and irritating people for global change and upsetting the establishment voices, many of whom refused the writer's request to talk, which I think is cool. I want to read this. She writes, Gym doesn't just seem unbothered by the ruckus she creates. It's part of the point. Quoting you now, I think I've said very clearly that my role on city council is not to be a megaphone for powerful interests that already have their connections here. I just want to say, as a podcast that does the same thing, but with massively lower stakes, I think that rules. And I want to know, like, how do you not get tired of fighting on so many fronts where the less powerful are getting screwed over?
I mean, like I said, I think I don't focus in on places where like oppression and white supremacy and patriarchy and money are centered. I focus on the places where we tear those things down. And I think when you kind of prioritize, you decenter. Power has many different like kinds of understandings and meanings, but my job is always to decenter power, like to take it away from traditional notions of like money and like titles and, who's in a back room, and like bring it back to people's voices. Because I think, people's voices, people like are afraid of the noise and the democracy and the dissent, but like that's democracy creating itself every single day. We're trying to figure this world out that we live in. And, like some of the struggles, sure, like they go on forever. Like it feels like you never make headway on housing. You don't make enough headway on your schools or on racism. But this is like the original sins of this nation. We have to figure this out for everybody. And every moment is a chance to recreate and change and open up another pathway. And so, yeah, I'm not going to waste time looking at who's like got a ton of power and money. I already know that game. But we have not spent enough time like unlocking powers of communities, like looking at young people and helping them tell stories that begin to topple power. If a young girl can cross an Atlantic Ocean and irritate, the free leader or whatever, the most powerful man in the US government, good for her. Like that is an example of how like ordinary people can just take this system down, and we have to.
Well, speaking of irritating people in power, we've irritated the team quite a bit over the years when things happen that we don't feel is right. Like I think from a certain perspective, the voice that we have, like we take seriously, and people put a lot of time and money and energy into the team. So like that's our little section of the world. I would like to, if it's okay with you, I feel like talking about the advantages of a stadium in a community, or the purported advantages in like a grander sense, and then sort of like drill down to what's happening at Penn's Landing with the Sixers. Is that okay?
Sure.
So most times when you go through these proposals, when they're asking to use tax money for stadiums, there's like a few things that they promise. One of them that they always promise is job creation. Another one that they always promise, specifically in this case, which we'll get to, is that it's going to raise the property value, which means that the property tax will go up, which means the city will make more money that way. In this specific case, they promise jobs for Black people, for brown people, for minorities. Generally, how much do like sports arenas live up to those promises?
I mean, look, I think they're trash. I mean, we've got
There you go. All right.
we got
let's do it.
20 years. How many years do we have of this game? And it's a scam, like there's whole books devoted to it. This is not like a matter of opinion. These are economists. These are like, public finance experts who weigh in on this stuff and say these things are scams. There's no reason that we have to talk about minority employment by giving tax breaks to billionaires. Just hire more people of color. We don't have to build a city. We don't have to pay, Josh Harris to like build us a freaking public school and get him like a free stadium in the mix. We actually just need to make that public school happen. So, like this idea or the concept that they've gotten to kind of draw and exploit like the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of cities is also what I resent. This idea that they undermine the idea that government can't and won't and shouldn't, and that we should be grateful for the charity of billionaires who do us a favor by having us give them taxes to do what we could already actually do on our own. Like the public landscape is littered with broken promises of stadiums that, don't come to fruition or don't give back or destroy other communities or, quite remarkably, pick up and just walk away when the next good deal comes along. So, like I just think that cities need to stand up for themselves and to be able to say, when you've got a $5 billion, a man who like ranks on Forbes wealthiest, Americans in this country with a $2 billion, franchise, go pay for your thing yourself. I mean, look, like this is the biggest joke of all, right? Like how short are our memories? 4 years ago, he took the training facility, he took his headquarters and he went across the river to Camden for $82 million in tax breaks. And now he's back at the Trop again, now this time playing us for a game. And, with promises of jobs, well, he's not going to break ground for 8 years. He's not going to break ground for 8 years. So I'm not twiddling my thumbs for 8 years waiting for Josh Harris to figure out what he wants to do with his personal playground. Like we've got things to do. Today was the very first day of school. I got 18,000 kids without internet. We've got like, teachers we've got a teacher's contract where I've got to, tell teachers that they may have to like stave off like a pay increase because why? We don't have enough money, but Josh Harris gets to walk in and be able to say, I'm a billionaire and I really am the one who needs a handout, please. Like I think we have to know that this game has got to run its course, and it's only going to happen when cities stand up and say no. The race to the bottom will never stop. The billionaire grift never quits. And so, like until cities stand up and say no, we have something else to offer our people. And sports is wonderful. We love it. We cheer them on. We love the 76ers. We love the team.
Don't.
Well,
we love the idea of the team, okay?
Yeah, that's right. That's
We
exactly
don't
right.
love the people behind the team right now, and feelings are hurt. Look, I live with a Celtics fan, okay? So like
no.
before we come on, like just, he just reminded me that, it's the Celtics that took them out. But regardless,
Thank you.
it's really, yeah, of course.
Well, so much for starting grandly. So I guess the and support everything you say, preaching amazing. Thank you. And I think one of the things we said in the last podcast when we were talking about it is we were just like, okay, then leave. So the threat is, because this has happened in Philadelphia, whether it was Harold Katz or Norman Brayman or whatever owner, if you don't do this, I'm going to take my team and move it somewhere else. And the threat for that is twofold. First of all, is like the public loves the team, having the team. And the second thing I would guess from the city is like, there's a lot of wage tax that comes along with NBA players and things like that. So how do you deal with if they come and they go, well, Camden's willing to do it to us again? In that case, do you just say, okay, have fun in Camden, or what happens at that point?
Yeah, you don't get to keep our name. You don't get to keep the 76ers. Have fun being the New Jersey 87ers. Is that when their constitution
that
was
was
like,
Delaware.
created?
That was Delaware. Yeah.
No, I think New Jersey. I looked it up because I think New Jersey is 1787 too.
Oh wow, how about that?
So they can be so then they can't even do the 87ers because like that's already been taken.
Yeah,
it's already
name.
taken. So you can't
Gone.
think of something else, no, you don't get to take our name with you. And but look, I don't, I don't think that we have to, like, it's so amazing to me how quickly it goes to that level of chicken, where you have to play this game to the ultimate extreme, right? And sure, yes, there are examples of, horrendous owners who will pick up and leave, and, they'll trade their teams and, don't even care, and like drive their teams into the ground. And, I think they've suffered, like their teams have suffered, their stadiums suffer, their turnout suffers. It's not profitable. So, I think the 76ers are a storied team. They're part of Philadelphia. We want them to be part of Philadelphia. I think what is not palatable here is the size of the development, the location of the development, kind of the terms of the development, and just like the unseemly nature of what they're trying to do right now, which is to do a full court press, to try and go and lobby and make a big stink in the press and like, wine and dine or do whatever with, certain people. And I just think it's like, it turns people off. It should turn people off because we don't have to do it that way. They put in a bid back in February to the Delaware River Waterfront Corporation that has a master plan that is laid out for decades and decades, and said, the terms are really clear. So, they should be able to stand on the merits of their proposal. They don't need to do this unseemly kind of old school politicking that, just reeks of like, stuff that is irrelevant to what they'll be judged upon at the end of the day.
Who are they trying to appeal to? Because when I'm looking at it, everybody's like, well, fuck no. Absolutely not. No. Who is it that they are trying to get to, like with these, like by making this public? Who
yeah,
would be in favor of that?
Look, I am not Josh's PR crisis manager here, but I think he probably needs to make a quick phone call on a crisis management scheme, because I just think some of this has not been great for them. And so I think it speaks more to sort of, the arrogance and the out of touchedness of like a billionaire asking for like hundreds and hundreds of millions in public subsidies while we are in the middle of a pandemic. It's like freaking obscene. So, to me, it's just gross to like be able to be doing this. And I think it speaks more to the fact that they're completely out of touch. And, and so I just think this is a reality check that they don't run this town. We actually have some voice here. And I think, the fact that you, Spike and Mike, both of you have been great on this issue. You're reaching a wide audience. You're talking to people about, even though it's about the Sixers, but it is like municipal politics. It's about the future of the city. It's not just about basketball anymore.
Well,
if the Sixers have one talent, it's having access to many crisis managers. That is certainly something in their Rolodex. What do you think is like the ideally mutually beneficial relationship that a city should have with its sports franchise, on like the business end, not the grease the polls when they win or lose?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you want to have, like you want there's lots of different things. It doesn't mean like we never support the 76ers or your sports teams. Of course, we support our sports teams all the time. And that can sometimes include, a little bit of public money, but it doesn't include tons and tons of public money. And it doesn't include where they get to pick. They don't get to pick their land. They don't get to pick when they want to do it. It's got to fit in with a general plan. But generally, there is a trend towards stadiums in particular. Like, I think that the issue is somewhat about stadiums, right? Like stadiums are a scam. And I think we should just call some of that stuff out. Stadiums, like Josh Harris building his own stadium here in the city of Philadelphia, is a massive investment in him. Like it's a great investment for him. He should go build it because it will immediately increase his bottom line. The Sixers will become a much more valuable franchise. He'll be able to control concessions. He can build minority if he wants. There's no reason why he needs public subsidy to build with minority employment and trades unions. But the thing is that it's the stadiums that I think are what we equate with the team. The team and the stadiums are two separate things here. We can have a collaborative, loving, supportive, unending love-hate relationship with our team. That does not include the stadium. The stadium is an investment in Josh Harris, and if that's the case, he should fund it. He'll get his return on his investment, pretty quickly down the road. He doesn't need a public dole to help him make that happen.
Well, and not to mention, there's no way they will even own the team in 2028. Like I don't know how that works, how they like if they just give the project to somebody else, but like the idea of them seeing this through like 12 years from now when they've only owned the team for 8 years in the first place seems like insane to me. I think the other thing that that you sort of touched on, aside from the financial aspect of it, so I worked in Old City for 20 years and I lived in Old City for 4. And, you know, you would go to Penn's Landing and be like, well, why is there nothing here? You know, like there's why, you know, there would be like a festival here and a festival there, but nothing. I can't tell you what does not seem like it would revive Penn's Landing more than a giant indoor arena that would be empty 200 nights a year.
Exactly.
Like we were talking on the last podcast, when you think about an arena, who stays around after the game besides people who want to drink too much and like cause trouble anyway? I can't like what it seems like such a bad place for it to me, public money or not.
Right. And, you know, like it's not only like it's also that we have worked for so long to try and create a vision of the waterfront that isn't just like ruining it every single day with like horrible ideas of big box projects that fail over and over and over again, to make it an appealing place, you know, for the city to show off its best assets. You know, the waterfront right now is kind of miserable. Like it's just broken up into a lot of different places, and we're trying to bring it back. That's what an urban planning process really tries to do. It's to say, like, we have this vision for the waterfront. It's going to take us some amount of time to get to it. And, you know, we should evaluate projects in terms of how they fit into the overall vision of what we're trying to get to, which is more public access, more public usage, more green space, like more engagement. You know, I'm like up here on the other side of the river by the Schuylkill, where like 500,000 people are on the trail every single weekend. And it's a joyous, like communal space. I think a lot about how, like, you know, I grew up as an immigrant, for example, you know, in an immigrant family. And, you know, we didn't have much at home, but like we got everything out of these public spaces in our city. So like I didn't have much of a backyard, but like I had an amazing park, that a public park that you're part of. Like, you know, you go learn and swim at your public pools. And, you know, like to me, public space is very sacred. You don't give it up that easily. And so, yeah, like the waterfront is a bizarre location for a gigantic stadium that would fill the entire space of the acreage that they're particularly looking at. It's between market, you know, it's like in a centralized area of the city. They want to talk about economic revitalization. Knock, knock. That place doesn't need economic revitalization. It needs like a beautiful place of engagement. It doesn't need cheap old ideas from, like, you know, as I said, like an economics for dummies playbook from the mid 90s. Like, we have played this game before. We know what these things look like. They're not attractive. You know, there's only 40 home games a year, 42 or 45 home games, plus assorted, like whatever, you know, concerts that they want to do. But that's not like a public space anymore. And so, you know, the waterfront is part of a vision. It's not Josh Harris's playground. It doesn't get to be what he wants. It's what we want. And, you know, if he makes a proposal that miraculously fits in line with the vision for the waterfront, which I would personally be very surprised by, then, you know, we will know, because the DRWC will say, hey, this is what we want. And then we can duke it out then. But, you know, to kind of go around like a massive 15 to 20 year planning process is just, you know, it feels wrong on really a lot of levels. And it's below what the 76ers should be doing right now.
Well, the Sixers, and as a
I know that they are strong here
because they are so good at trying something that doesn't work again and again. That's what they're really excellent at. You got to imagine that a lot of lobbying will be going into making their vision a reality, and they're going to try to lobby the hell out of people.
I can't wait.
If someone was trying to lobby you for this, although you've made your position rather clear, how would they do it, and what would someone more receptive to it in your position do?
I have no idea. I
don't?
like, one of my
Neither do I.
biggest disappointments about being in politics is that I want to know what like the ridiculous kind of like lobbying is,
Mhm.
because I don't feel like I've really experienced it. I know other people have, but I
Mhm.
don't know that I've really like felt like I have been like fully, like, I don't
Greased.
know. Yeah. Did you say greased?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Right. So, like I kind of wait around. I think one time, like the soda lobby came through and gave us like a big gift basket.
Huh?
And I was like telling my staff, don't use it, you shouldn't like take it and all that stuff. But they went ahead and drank it anyway and they got sick. So I was like, yo, like it's
It's a
on you.
lesson.
They had to go home because they had like some kind of like horrible, like intestinal, like terrible thing. And I'm like, that was like that was, I don't, that's as good as I got here.
All right,
Um,
that's
I don't
good
know.
to know.
I don't know that I'm going to be top on the list, but if I am, I will definitely let you know how it goes. I always tell lobbyists, hey, none of this is private, okay?
yeah. All right. I have one more sort of specific question, and then a general question, and then you're done. Thank you, by the way. We don't know how to. It's funny, like we're not like have politicians on podcasts. So Mike's like, so how do they grease your palms in city council? Like we don't know
Is
what
that what-
that. Yeah,
Just asking questions.
yeah.
That
So-
every man would want to know.
Writer, I thought, Mike.
Yeah.
You gotta,
Well, it's a lot of making things up. Nobody
Yeah.
knows.
So if you could clear it for me, because I read the 3 different articles about how they're specifically requesting this money. The way I understand it is like they get the money and then they say that the city gets the money back later when property taxes go up, like for other people. That's how the city gets the money back. How does that even like work? We're just basically giving them the money essentially,
Yeah,
right?
well, so one of the more funny things I think that's been going around about the dialogue when I read the media around it, they're like, oh, no direct revenue will go
Right.
will go from the city, like we're paying the Eagles, for example, $35 million in a check to pay down their construction bond, and we're still doing that now. And so they said, oh, well, no direct money will go. Well, that's ridiculous because tax revenue is direct money into our coffers. The Sixers are paying money now on their stadium because it's over 20 years old. So there's no tax abatement that kind of applies there. And now they don't want to pay that anymore. And what's the more obnoxious part about it is like, this is kind of the more bananas thing. The way this thing works is that, there's going to be in the most like extreme fantasy version of what I can understand this like neighborhood improvement zone to be, which has only been done in one place, Allentown. And it was so bad. The state decided to modify the program and not apply it anywhere else. So like it's a scam, and most people know that it's like not a good idea. The businesses that are in that zone, they don't get a tax break or anything like that. They got to pay their taxes. They pay their taxes to Josh Harris. Like that's amazing to me. They don't pay the taxes to the city or to the state. They pay the same amount of taxes. They just pay it to Josh Harris, and he gets to use his bonds off of it. So like the whole thing is
so crazy.
That's insane.
It sounds crazy.
It's only something that billionaires who think they can get away with it. And like I said, like there was a point in time where we're like back, it's like we're back in the 90s in some kind of desperate vision of Philadelphia where like everything is for sale and nothing can be controlled by us, and we clawed our way out of that. And we're a city that's vibrant, it's diverse, it's younger than it's ever been. It's more people not born in the US are living here and revitalizing back our public schools and bringing life back to economic corridors and filling up neighborhoods and communities and wanting more than just like someone coming in and saying, I want this, when we're struggling to pick up trash right now in the middle of a pandemic, when we're trying to get school kids like taken care of, when we're trying to get people fed in the poorest large city in America. So like, at some point, you got to say no. And it's not that we don't have a vision for like development or economy. We do. Like, I can build schools, I can build affordable housing. I want to build light rail transit. I want to build parks and libraries. Those are buildings, those are jobs, those are an investment in the community. Like Josh Harris wants to do it. But you know what? Like, we're going to use our taxpayer dollars to give back to our communities. We're not giving it to a billionaire.
So what can people do? Right? People, by the way, the Sixers timing, impeccable, truly impeccable.
Always so
After
good.
the most disappointing
Clap.
season in years, thousands of people are unemployed in the city. Like, everybody's scared to go into indoor places. Like, just the worst possible time. If you're listening to this podcast and you think that this idea is terrible and you live in the city of Philadelphia, what do you do to make sure to try to make this not happen?
Yeah. So, you can always email your local elected officials, let them know how you feel. Letters to the editor, keep the voices loud. Like, I think a lot of this is about keeping voices loud. You can write to the Delaware River Waterfront Corporation and let them know, like, you want a process to follow a process. You don't want the 76ers to get it because they, spent tens of thousands of dollars on some lobbyists to go out and try to win a flawed proposal, in front of this group. But, at the end of the day, I think, like, the more that Philadelphians are loud about it and are loud about the city that they want, obviously it's like kind of easy to go after Josh Harris. But,
And fun.
yeah. It's always a good reminder that the guy, who is behind the tanking of Hahnemann Hospital and, has a current 100% employment rate amongst his stadium staff members, most of whom are Black and brown workers who are now on, like, seeking unemployment or don't have any money coming in, maybe should be the last person thinking about his personal bottom line and handout. But, like, you got to remind people, but we want more than just, talking about Josh Harris. We want to talk about the city that we do want. Like, what's
Right.
the vision for us? And really, like, I think that ultimately makes this proposal look small. It makes it look selfish and petty and greedy, and, like, it'll crush itself. But we do have to be loud about it. So that's why I'm, like, really appreciative that you took, this space of this team that you live and love to hate and die for and everything.
Okay.
Your hearts break every time, every season, like, but we know that it's because we're Philadelphians. The 76ers aren't special because they're the 76ers or Josh. They're special because Philadelphians love them. And so Philadelphians, that's what makes that team special. There isn't a fan base like Philadelphia. They know that. And so, like, let's love this city enough to say hell no and, move on.
I have to ask, how was Queer Eye?
It was really flattering. It was wonderful. I mean, I love the young woman, Abby, she's an amazing young woman, and I love Sunrise. And it was just, I was incredibly honored.
How was the scene with Karamo?
His skin is beautiful. That's all you can really say. Like, it's just perfect. I mean,
I worry that Karamo is a sociopath because he's so good at, like, connecting with someone on such a real level and then able to just, like, drop it really quick. And I'm like, there's something's going on there because he's so good at it.
Mike's turning this podcast into his girlfriend's reality TV show podcast.
No, I love it. Like, she doesn't even have. She's never had Queer Eye on
yeah.
there. It's actually it's a separate thing. It's different style of reality show. I want to ask. You're not going to say when you're running for mayor of Philadelphia, so I won't ask you that. But when are you running for mayor of Los Angeles?
I think there's a residency requirement there.
Okay, I'll look up some places for you. Also, you are pretty short, and you do seem pretty quick. So if you'd like to be starting point guard for the Sixers,
yes, we could use a
that
point
also
guard.
would be helpful for us.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Yeah. Can you dribble, shoot? All right.
You don't even have to. Just be there.
Just be there.
Well, I think you've made it easier. We did it when we were mad at the team once. We took out a billboard right outside the Wells Fargo Center and made them mad. So I think maybe we've talked Mike into our no arena billboard this year.
That was amazing. I love it. Kudos.
So you can follow Helen on Twitter at Helen Gym, GYMPHL. Anything else you want them to do when you have them here?
Yeah. Just, like, Go Sixers next year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
In their same place.
Yep. Well, it's funny. Like, I didn't know what to expect having her on. You know, I wanted to ease her in. That's why I'm like, let's talk about stadiums. And she's like, Josh Harris can take his $1 billion and get the fuck out of town. I was just like,
I was kind of expecting some of a political answer, and then she was just like, it's crap. It's
yeah.
sucks. I was like, oh, great. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah. I was like, oh, you're doing our pod for us. You could host.
If she wants to just do a couple, I could use the vacation.
Yeah, it seems like it actually. Yeah. The rights. We have to talk about our old friend Jimmy Butler. We started right before Helen got on, but we have to finish that up. Before we do, let's talk about our other old friend Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. Maybe. Do you think Kornblau would make a good politician?
I don't think he is capable of spinning anything.
Right.
I think he's too dedicated to the truth.
He is. You can't handle the truth, but Kornblau can. There you go. There's his new phrase. Is Kornblau the second? I believe he was the second sponsor of the Ricky. Second? Was he after Big? Yeah. Okay. So Adam's been with us for a while. So Kornblau is a personal injury law firm. We like to say the premier boutique personal injury law firm, and what we mean by that is you hear personal injury law firms advertised all the time. When you call, you're really just getting a referral service to another place, but Kornblau is there to take care of you. But what we found over the years, even though Kornblau does an amazing job, but the other Kornblau is his mom, several other Kornblaus in the office, I imagine too. Several Kornblaus, is that he has helped our listeners with just so many different issues, from like bad landlords to car insurance problems, like car accidents, to like all of that stuff. He's there for you because he's part of our community and he wants to help you through it. So even like, he's given us so much advice to give you about like when you're buying car insurance, what to do. I actually just consulted him recently because I had water in my basement and I was fucked by my stupid insurance company on it. And he came up with a pretty sneaky plan actually, but it didn't work, but he did give me a plan. In any case, he's there for you. He likes to say, if you get hurt in any way, don't be a hero. If you're hurt, if you're injured at work, medical malpractice, slip and fall, anything like that, just call Kornblau. It doesn't cost you one penny until he gets results for you. He's very good at cutting through the bullshit. Yeah. So if you got any questions, just like shoot him an email, give him a call. And by the way, he's the guy that deals with the bullshit, not you. And he gives it to you straight. Just everybody who sends us a note about Adam, it's been awesome. Give him a call or shoot him an email, 215-576-7200, or email kornblau@kornblau.com. He'll even come to you, does house calls, the only personal injury lawyer that does that. Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. So I'm watching a game the other night. I do like that there's just games on all the time, just like constantly. And I'm watching Milwaukee, Miami, and I just knew in my gut that Jimmy Butler was going to hit a bunch of shots. Mm-hmm. And he did. And I think the most direct, there were a bunch of people that talked about, this is why we shouldn't have let him go. Like I have maintained and would maintain like the him and Ben Simmons thing. People talk about Brett Brown. Look, if Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid were good with having Jimmy Butler back, like he would have been back. Like it's a fact that they would have fired Brett. They were looking for a reason to fire Brett for 5 years anyway. Totally. Like
I think it was a mutual Ben and Jimmy decision.
Yeah. There's no way that Jimmy, like, it's just whatever. I don't want to litigate that over and over again, but
which it is weird because Jimmy was a flip the switch guy. We were talking about it during the season.
Oh, right.
And he was in the playoffs, he like clearly hit another gear that he didn't really have in the regular season. And that might've been because he was just like, well, I'm just kind of standing there in the corner. And that was his way of showing that he doesn't approve of like how this team is being run, or the personnel or whatever it is.
And by the way, too, like it's just, people are like, well, Ben was obviously okay with somebody else, handling the ball. Look what happened with Shake. It's like, well, that took a whole other season. And by the way, it didn't even really stick. So he didn't.
And Shake's not also a guy who dominates the ball
No, right.
in a way that Jimmy would, dribble out the clock and do his thing.
My point from the very beginning was that the reason it wasn't going to work here is that Jimmy wants to be the focus of the offense, and when he's not, he's disruptive. And it's it's 100% what happened here.
Totally.
And
I think most superstar players are like that, especially guys who don't like to shoot off the catch, which
absolutely
Jimmy
Jimmy did not. And by the way, that's what makes, I hate to go back to this. It's sort of what makes the finding the third star almost impossible with Simmons and Embiid, because like star players want the ball a lot. You already have two guys who want the ball. Like they essentially just overpaid for role players and called them stars is what they did. They're like, Tobias Harris is a star because he has $36 million. Anyway.
Yeah. He also likes to have the ball.
Yes, he does. But he's not going to fucking light up the coach when he doesn't get it. I think there's a difference there. So after the game, Embiid tweets twice. Once he tweets, did he just tweet too good, or was it Jimmy too good? I think
he tweeted Jimmy Butler #too good, which is a real throwback to Sixers Twitter during the process era of the Sixers being too good when we
lottery party T-shirt,
right? Wanted them to be bad. And then he tweeted "if" in caps with a bunch of ellipses.
Right. Never said a word about Brett Brown, by the way. Jimmy Butler.
That doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Like, guys. If I didn't say anything about Brett, it's weird, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
We cover the team as much as we do, so it's a weird thing to. They're not saying a word about everything. He didn't say anything about. I don't think about the Celtics series anyway.
No. So Jimmy was on Sam Amick's. I think it was a podcast. I saw the transcript. So the question: did you see Joel's tweet? Butler's response: they told me about it. I don't be on social media like that. How did that hit you? That's my guy outside of basketball. I love that man to death. He knows that. I tell him every opportunity I get, and I appreciate him for making me a better player, a better leader, better at understanding so many different things. I talk to him all the time, and I tell him, I wish you were still in the playoffs because you deserve a championship. Because he works at it, and that's just my guy. Yeah, I saw it, and I know he still wanted me on his team, and I wanted to be teammates with him. Let's not get that misunderstood. But here with these guys, I'm not trading that for the world either. Like, I know that Joel reads this, and Jimmy knows what he's doing, by the way. Question: you talk about players and those dynamics, but you never really talked about Brett. There's the dynamic there that's been talked about. Whether it's that or other factors, why aren't you in Philly? Why aren't I in Philly? Because me and Philly didn't work out. That's why. They didn't want you to talk to anybody else, right? They did not, but I wasn't worried about it. I'm here now, and I'm telling you, I don't even think about what could have happened with Brett Brown. What could have happened, I don't, because if I get too lost in that, I'm not doing my due diligence for these guys. I'm so fucking locked in right now, and I will do anything it takes to win, man. I'm telling you.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. All work hard.
All the
Jimmy's hard. Loser. Work hard. So, anything?
I mean, I don't like what? What do we say? Do we say that like Jimmy's still in the playoffs? And
do you think
I DVR'd the game, so I'm not seeing what's happening. But
do you think Joel expressed to the front like when people talk about this? We talk about how, forgetting about Jimmy, because talk about Redick too. Do you think Joel like expressed how important it was for certain players to be here?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think that he thought it was on him to do. He's never been around another superstar. I mean, maybe his agents did that, back dealing. And it's not like, you don't come into the league knowing the kind of power you command, and just intrinsically having it and knowing that you can kind of throw your weight around to do this or that. I think he thought like, okay, last year I already said I don't want Brett fired, but like, I don't know. I think he maybe just thought it would work out. And just like, well, they'd be stupid if it didn't work out. It's kind of the thing, like, that's on his reps. That's on the Sixers front office again for not engaging him in that conversation. I don't know if it's because they didn't think he deserved it or they thought that they just are going to do what's best for the team and everybody else will just be fine with it.
By the way, Redick is CAA. They're the same agency. You know,
not great. Alyssa's also CAA. If you guys want to sign her, that's a good conversation. Yeah. It's just we're getting to the place, and we've been here before, and it's messy and uncomfortable, but there's just so many, there's like just baggage. There's baggage everywhere you look. And even if you fire some people, like they still hover over this team. And it's ultimately, as much as we talk about the front office, it's ultimately going to come down to Ben and Joel. And I think like it's interesting to me that Jimmy said that Joel works, because the book on him is that he kind of doesn't. Right? I mean, if we were going to hate on Joel, which not something that we do regularly or with any joy, it's like, hey, you're out of shape. You don't
doesn't work on his body, doesn't work on his game enough, yada yada.
Yeah. And even, even in the Jimmy mentality of like, whether the very hyper masculine, like my shit, I handle my shit, I'm a man, like that kind of stuff. Joel got like shut out by Marc Gasol.
Right.
In a way that's like, that doesn't jibe with the Jimmy mindset. So it's interesting. I mean, they might have just connected on a certain level, but they don't. Ben seems like the guy because of how visibly hard he plays on defense.
If you don't fuck with me,
do you think though that
then I won't fuck with you.
I mentioned Jimmy knows what he's doing.
If you don't fuck with me,
not
then I won't fuck with you.
Manipulate.
But if you fuck with me,
knowing that that's the rap on Joel. I'm gonna fucking kill you. Saying that's public.
I also don't think I think he loves Bam, and I think Bam's very good. I don't think Bam Embiid is like I don't think this is a slow play to get like Embiid to Miami. Yeah, I was also doing this is something else. People talk about Jokic, and I know your issues with Jokic and Denver in general, but they talk about him like he's a really good shooter, and he's just like him and Embiid are the same level of shooter. In the 4 years that Embiid has been in the league, Embiid has shot better than him twice from three, and Jokic has shot better than him twice from three. It's like they're both like pretty mediocre shooters.
Attempts?
And so this
How
idea
many
that
attempts for Jokic?
about the same, yeah, like really not that much. And so that has always frustrated me. And also this idea that, I mean, Giannis is obviously more willing to get to the line than Ben. But they both don't shoot well from the line.
Well, this year he didn't shoot well from the line. The last 3 years he shot better. He didn't shoot well this year, but if you look at Giannis, like what was Giannis last year? Like 75%?
Sorry, Jokic is per 36 minutes 3.3 threes per game.
And what is Joe?
I think
about the same.
Probably around 3.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I think there's just this book, 4.2 per 36. And like, I don't know. There's for some reason, you look at like Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert as this thing of like they clearly had issues with each other, publicized, vocalized issues with each other, and people were like, well, like they'll probably be able to make it work. I think there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to make it work. Why wouldn't they? But Embiid and Simmons, who have never said anything specifically bad about each other, and Embiid came on this podcast and basically blew Ben Simmons a kiss, bought a vineyard together and said, let's move into it and live there for the rest of our lives. And there's people who are like, that's never going to work out. They're never going to like each other.
But I don't think it has anything to do with liking each other. It has to do with their games don't work together yet. They just don't.
Yeah, it's different. But I would say that Jamal Murray and Jokic's games don't work together because they both fucking suck at defense.
And they're not going to win a championship either. So
Totally, but they don't talk about that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And Giannis shot 63% from the line this year. Ben shot 62.
But last year.
But obviously
yeah.
on way fewer
Yeah.
attempts and stuff.
But what was Giannis last year and the year before from free throw?
In the 70s. So it might be a bad
Yeah.
year. But
And
still, I mean, there's still games when Giannis is like 5 of 12 from the line. Like he's not an
he
excellent
also
shot shooter.
shoots 12. Yeah, I don't even.
Yeah.
You watch Giannis and Giannis's problem.
No, I'm not comparing them. I'm not comparing them in a sense of like, who's better than who or whatever. I just think for whatever reason, and maybe it's because it's Philly or whatever it is, or because they're both like immigrants, Ben and Embiid get a lot more shit than anybody else.
Jokic
Jokic
is an immigrant, so is Gobert.
But Jamal Murray's Canadian. I guess.
Yeah, and Gobert.
But Donovan Mitchell's not. I was saying because they're both, I don't know, something about them both being like, maybe because they're not like known, because they don't reveal themselves.
It's our fucking fault. It's our fault for turning this whole thing into a whole fucking thing.
Yeah. That's honestly what I think it is. I take back, I don't know, I was just sort of riffing about what it could be, but I think it's because of the process. I think is really what the answer is. It's like everyone is still, even years later, regimes later, mistakes, now a new coaching staff, everybody still wants them to fail. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
They do. They don't think that they earned it or they're good enough, or because they're weird players. Neither of them is like fits the traditional idea. Like neither of them is just like Bradley Beal. He's really good. Like he's just really good at stuff. It's like you're good at a bunch of things and there's weird at other things. So I think that ultimately, like something about Ben and Embiid rub people the wrong way, and maybe it's our fault.
They want to shove it in
get
our
a lot
fucking
more.
face. They want to shove it in our fucking face.
Well,
yeah.
With the Sixers certainly help them do that. Fire Scott O'Neal. Get him out of there.
Get him out of there. Let's go. Come on. All right. We'll talk to you this weekend. Go Rockets tonight. I would love for the Rockets to win, but we support whoever wins that series. Maybe the Rockets will lose and we'll go get Morey.
That'd be interesting.
Awesome. Can you imagine that? I was talking to Sixers Adam about that today. Can you imagine the podcast after the Sixers hire Morey?
I mean, if we hire Daryl Morey will co-host this podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
He will come on every episode.
Absolutely.
And we will confront him to his face.
All right. We'll talk to you this weekend. You down with TTP?
Yeah, lick face.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you. If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
Then I won't fuck with you.
but if you fuck with me,
That's a plan B.